Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to my channel. This is gonna be a video that's potentially really hard to get through. Keep knocking stuff, sorry. But I'm gonna try. So let me just preface this. This is gonna be very different than any content I've ever created before, because I just want to take my channel in a different direction. I love makeup still, will always love makeup, but it's just not as much what I'm interested in anymore. And I've noticed that a lot of the videos that I watch on YouTube, a lot of the videos that I watch on YouTube are more like cleaning motivation and a lot of family stuff, like moms who are recording their family and like morning routines with their babies and all kinds of stuff like that. Granted, situation was different before, which I will get into, but I still find myself just gravitating towards that kind of like lifestyle video instead of the beauty community. I don't know if that has to do with all of the drama that happens in the beauty community or if it's just like my lack of motivation to create beauty content. I don't know. Either way, I am a firm believer that you should, if you want to create content, create the content that you enjoy watching, because in the end, you can guarantee that you're going to be watching it, but you can't really guarantee that other people will watch it. So, I want to make content that I enjoy watching and making. Doesn't mean I'm going to sit and watch my own videos, but it's just I want to make something that I enjoy more, and I enjoy lifestyle more than beauty right now. Okay, so that's out of the woods. What was the other thing I was going to say? I don't know. Oh, yes, I do know. So the thing that like hinders me from creating content with lifestyle is my living situation. So I rent a room at a house. My landlord owns the whole house, and then there's us and one other couple that lives here. So we have our own space, we have our own bathroom, our own bedroom, and then our bedroom is big enough that we've created kind of a separate space for our own living room kind of setup, but we do share a kitchen. I have our own little kitchen area, but even that room, half of it is our stuff and half of it is literally like construction storage for my landlord. So it's just not the most aesthetically pleasing to watch sometimes, and my landlord has a lot of projects that he'll start and then never really finish. It's not the most ideal setup to film videos that I like to post, like the content that I would want to post, like cleaning motivation and not life hacks necessarily, because that just reminds me of like Troom Troom and I'm not into that. Just like, you know, I don't know, lifestyle-y stuff. Our space, I'm fairly happy with. There's still some stuff I would change, but you know, I do like our space. But our bathroom is cool, but it's also connected to the laundry room, so it also gets dirty fast, which means I'm cleaning it all the time, which means I'd have tons of content related to that. So, I don't know, I just figured I'd put that out there. If you guys don't really care about the aesthetics of it for right now, then I guess I'll still do that kind of stuff. It's just like right now, it's really limited to up here, and the only stuff I really do up here is like dust, wipe off my surfaces, and vacuum, and make the bed. I think that's like it. So yeah, I don't know. Let me know. Okay. Sorry, I'm like dying. Oh, I need to grab tissues. I think I might try and make it through this without crying. I don't think that'll happen, but the next part of this video is going to be my, oh, I'm already starting to tear up, my pregnancy story. It's a story. If you know me personally at all, that you know we lost our baby. She didn't make it, and it was very unexpected. Oh my gosh, I don't want to sit in front of a camera and cry. This was not my intention was not to sit in front of a camera and cry, but one, it helps to talk about it, and two, I don't want anybody to feel like they're going through this alone, because it sucks, and I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. And so if my story is able to help other people get through theirs, then that's what I want. You know, from the outside, I'm young and healthy and was doing everything right. And so, you know, there's some moments where I feel like that it was easy to just say, oh, she's young and healthy, and brush it to the side. And I really hope that's not the case. And, you know, I pray constantly that that's not the case, that, you know, it was just a chance. But it sucks, you know? So, I'll just start from the beginning. Okay, first off, I filmed content with my pregnancy, like, a lot. I was planning to film while I was still working, when I could film, because filming isn't the part that takes the longest, it's editing that takes the longest. And so I was filming content and I was like, oh, I'll edit it later. I'll edit it when I'm on maternity leave. Like, I'll edit it a different time. And that was my plan. And obviously now I don't really want to edit it. I don't know if I want to scrap the material altogether, but I don't really want to edit it, and I don't want to post it. It's just hard. But because I was like showing off my bump the whole time, and, you know, wearing all of the cute mom shirts and everything. So back in, what was it, June or July-ish, end of June, beginning of July, I went to Europe, which was amazing, and I also vlogged that entire trip. I still have all the footage, I just don't feel like posting it anymore. I still loved my Europe trip, it was still amazing. It's just one of those things that, like, I think about it, and I was pregnant during that whole trip, and so I'm hesitant to post it, you know. So I went to Europe and it was awesome. My mom took me for 2 weeks. We went to 4 different countries. We went to London, France, Germany, and then Italy. It was an amazing trip and I loved it, but you know, looking back, like, I had no idea I was pregnant, 100%. And I will be, like, I'm gonna be completely honest, since I didn't know I was pregnant and I was 20 years old and the drinking age there is 18, I was drinking. And when I found out I was pregnant, I disclosed that to my doctor, and she said that there seemed nothing wrong. It seemed like everything was healthy. I was never fully, like, drunk partying, but I had a glass of wine or, like, a beer or something. Like, I was in Germany. How are you supposed to not have beer in Germany? Like, okay. It was actually in Paris that my mom and I were at an Airbnb, and they were cooking with a lot of garlic, and I've always liked garlic. But they were cooking with a lot of garlic, and we were upstairs, and the smell was just wafting into our room, and I felt so sick. Like, so sick. And we kind of related it to, it was very hot in Europe, like, they were having their hottest season ever. And so we kind of related it to that, and the fact that the day before I hadn't really had much water. I was being really bad about that day. And so my mom and I were kind of like, I'm just dehydrated, you know, let's go drink some water, get out in the fresh air, the scent is killing you, you're nauseous, let's just go. And looking back, I probably was dehydrated, because if that was morning sickness, it was the only time I was really morning sick. I had morning sickness. I was mostly just exhausted. Sorry, my camera cut off. It does that all the time, and I don't know why. I have to, like, watch a little light blinking, and I didn't know where it ended off, and so I had to watch the footage, and then I saw the footage was out of focus and had bad lighting because it was, like, too harsh on my glasses, and so I fixed it, hopefully, and I'm watching that little red dot, and I will keep it in mind. So, I was saying I had morning sickness. I don't know if I had said this yet because I didn't want to watch all of the footage to see what I had already said, and I don't remember, but I was in Paris and I was feeling really nauseous. We kind of related it to dehydration. I don't know if it was just dehydration or morning sickness, I don't know. But I went outside my Airbnb and we went to the Uber. We were waiting for the Uber and I threw up, and my mom was like, "Are you pregnant?" And I was like, "I can't be pregnant. I'm not pregnant. No. And of course, I texted Jared. I was like, hey, like this happened. I don't think it means anything, but I just want to let you know because I'm going to keep you informed. And he was like, we'll take a test. And I was like, but my period's supposed to come any minute now. Like, I didn't miss my first period when I was pregnant. It was like, I don't remember specifically if it was light or anything. Like, I don't remember, but I know I didn't miss it. And so I was like, yeah, like, I mean, my period's supposed to come any day now. I've always had a lighter cycle, and so, like, you know, I can figure out my cycle, but it's like, it doesn't come down to a day, because my cycle's weird, and like I said, light. And so I was like, no, I'm not gonna waste my worry. I don't think it's possible. Like, I'm not. And so, but because the thought was in my head, I was worried about it, you know? And they always say that stress prolongs your period. Like, it can make your period come later. So I was stressed, and my period was becoming later, and I was like, hey, maybe it's just the stress. And I was also traveling, and they say that traveling can do that as well. And so I was like, well, I'm stressed and I'm traveling. My period's just late. It wasn't late. After I got home from Europe, it was supposed to come that week-ish, and it was a week or two before I was like, I should take a test. And so I went, I took a test. It was almost immediately positive, and I was so nervous, but so excited. So excited. And, okay, whew, not gonna cry. I definitely cried in that moment. It was a lot of emotions. And then we went to the doctor, because I had to get confirmed. I can't just walk into an OBG and say, I'm pregnant. They have to confirm you, and then they assign you an OBG, and they, like, get you started on the process, especially since I had just switched to Kaiser, and so I didn't have a doctor with them yet. I still don't have a primary doctor with them. I only went because of my pregnancy, or I only started with them when I had my pregnancy. We were at Kaiser before that. Like, we had just switched to Kaiser, not because I was pregnant. Long explanation. Okay, so I go and I tell him, like, yeah, my last period was this day, and she's like, oh, you're probably about 6 or 8 weeks along. And I was like, okay, wow, that's cool, like, crazy. And so then I scheduled my OBG appointment, and actually I think she told me I was like 4 to 6 weeks along when I went to the doctor. And then when my appointment was, I was like, oh, I'm about 6 or 8 weeks along. That's what we were thinking in my head, because I had to wait a little bit for the appointment, you know. So the doctor, for the first ultrasound, they go, it's an interior ultrasound. If you've had this ultrasound before, you know what I mean. So they go in there and they look, and as soon as she went in there, she was like, oh, you are not between 6 and 8 weeks. I was like, how far along am I then? Like, I was thinking, like, what, less than that? And she was like, no, you're like 11 weeks and 6 days. That's what she, like, measured. She's like, you're 11 weeks and 6 days. And that was a shock, and it was like a month of my pregnancy gone like that. And like I said, I had no idea the entire time I was in Europe. I had no clue. I had no symptoms. The only thing, looking back now, I'm like, wow, I was freaking exhausted. But I had just started a new job, and I had like a new full-time job that it was way more physically, like, demanding of me. Not only that, but I was traveling, and I was seeing Europe. So I was tired. I was on granted I was on vacation, but we were touring everything. But I just remember on every train ride, I was passed out. I would, like, sleep for hours and take naps, like, every day. Okay. July 12th, I took the test. I found out. Then I went to the doctor. She told me she told me that my due date, originally they told me my due date was March 10th. And then they were like, nope, it's February 16th. So, crazy, it all happened in a month. And then at that point, because I was starting my third trimester, or not the first trimester, I was ending my first trimester, starting my second. They say that usually around 12 to 13 weeks it's pretty much the safe period to start telling friends and family. And so I told my boss, and we were announcing it to everybody. I didn't even announce it on social media for a while, just because, oh my goodness, oh my gosh. Okay, pregnancy brought me hormonal mouth ulcers. and I had 3 weeks where I could not talk, could not move my mouth. My lips were so full of, it was basically like canker sores, but all over my lips and my mouth and my tongue, and people were like, oh, it must be a cold sore. It was not a cold sore. It started in my mouth. Cold sores start outside your mouth, just so you know. 2 to 3 weeks of just mouth breakout. It was so bad. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. If I slept and my lips like touched together, I would wake up in the morning and my lips would be stuck together and have to like pull them apart because there's like scabs forming. This is so disgusting. It was awful. So during that whole time, I didn't want to post any pictures of myself, and I was planning on having this cute announcement with myself and everything, and I was like, I don't want to post any pictures. Like, my lips look freaking awful. It was awful. I don't feel nice. I don't want to do that. And so I didn't until and then I was like, you know what, I'll use our puppy to announce it. So I had a really cute sign. It was like, I thought I was the baby, because Samson still is our baby. Obviously he's gonna be a year old in a month. So when I posted it, I was like, I thought I was the baby, and I got a really cute picture of Samson like looking up at me like puppy eyes, like, I thought I was the baby. It was precious. And then I had like, our kids have paws, and then like, not anymore, and it was really cute, you know. It was like the whole theme of it was, I thought, cute. And then I said, baby Spec coming February 2020. Had the ultrasound pictures. It was great. I loved it. So I posted that finally, and overwhelming amount of love and support, and it was just so great. It really showed me like how many people had our back. It was just amazing. And from there, it was kind of, I don't know, normal. Like, after the hormonal ulcers went away, I had a really great pregnancy. But the thing is, I was very small. I had a very small bump, and kind of everybody was just like, oh, you're just carrying it great. Like, you just look so small. And yeah, I was very small. Later to find out, there was maybe a reason that I was very small. So I'm trying to think and make sure I don't miss anything. Yeah, pregnancy went good. Telling family was cool. Forgot something kind of major. We went in and I did all of the prenatal genetic testing. All of it, except for the amniotic fluid one, because that one has a 3% chance of miscarriage, and I wasn't about to risk it. It's supposed to like show Down syndrome, and Down syndrome doesn't really, like, it doesn't change anything on my end. I will love my baby no matter what. So as much as it would help be prepared in that case, I think you can prepare enough with the blood tests. So yeah, I did the blood tests. Everything came back negative. It was great. But before that, they had done the scan for the gender and the full body, I don't remember what it's called, the full body scan, just to check everything, how she's growing and stuff. And that's when they find out the gender. It's like at 22 weeks, I think. And so at that appointment, they saw an endogenic focus on her heart. And the doctor went in and he looked at the ultrasound stuff, and he was like, yeah, no, you look like, it looks fine. Her heartbeat was fine. It looks strong. All of the pieces look nice and strong in there. And they were just like, yeah, you know, like, everything looks okay. They kind of wrote it off as just tissue buildup. In that appointment, they went and took an ultrasound and looked at her face and looked at her hands and looked at the places where Down syndrome usually shows, because endogenic focus has been linked to Down syndrome before in the past. And that was one of the things that my doctor had told me originally. And so they just went and looked, and they said, doesn't seem like there's anything. You're okay. You're all good. And I was like, okay, cool. And then literally like 2 days later, my blood test came back with Down syndrome as negative. So that was even better. I was like, cool. That was the only hiccup through my entire pregnancy. That was the only thing that ever happened. And like I said, it was wrote off as tissue buildup, which I had talked to people before my appointment as soon as they told me I had an androgenic focus, and they're like, oh, like, you know, sometimes it's nothing. Fast forward to, I start having contractions, like Braxton Hicks contractions, and they weren't the funnest. They didn't hurt at all. And so at one point I was at work and I was standing during a 4-hour meeting. I think I was like actually like 7.5 to 8 months pregnant. it was hard. It was not good. And I started having contractions because of that. And so they were literally like all day, like to the point where I was like, dang, I might need to go to the hospital if I'm having contractions like this. But they weren't painful yet. And so I was like, no, it's fine. But so as soon as I got home from work and I laid down in bed, like they went away. So I knew they weren't actual contractions. So it was fine. And at that point, Jared and I kind of decided, you know, like, I should stay home from work. I don't need to be doing that. I am very pregnant right now. Let's keep me home. It's okay. So I stayed home at that point and did like random stuff around here. Still didn't edit my videos because I just didn't. I was doing other stuff and like, you know, preparing for her and like we got furniture for her, and so like I think I was organizing. Oh my goodness, I organized so much. All of her clothes and stuff were all nicely organized and just everything was all ready for her. Okay, flash forward to the 7th, February 7th. My doctor, I had a doctor's appointment Friday morning, and this is gonna be the harder part. I had a doctor's appointment and she was like, yeah, you're kind of not progressing as fast as we want you to. You know, I was due February 16th, and so we were almost a week from my due date. She's like, I recommend doing a membrane sweep because it's usually sparks something. And it sparked something. I had a contraction immediately. It was the most painful thing ever. It hurt so bad. It wasn't the most painful thing ever. It was obviously manageable. But it hurt very bad. It was the worst pain I had had my entire pregnancy. And ooh, it was not fun. So at that point, she's like, yeah, you know, like, that's totally normal. She kind of warned me it would start a contraction, but she did say, she was like, you know, this could speed up your labor. If you go into labor, you could be having her this weekend, but it could be like 5 days. And in my head, I was thinking, well, I asked her, I was like, is it safe? And she was like, yeah, it's completely safe for the baby. I was like, okay, cool. And in my head, I was thinking, you know, my brother is supposed to be coming in a couple days. I kind of want baby to be here so he can meet her. And so I was like, yeah, you know what? I'll go through the pain. It's fine. I'm a tough woman. I can do it. So I did it. And she was like, hey, at this point, just keep walking. And like, she's like, maybe just go and run some errands and walk around if you can. Because you want to keep your body moving. If you stop, like, you could have more pain, whatever. And so I was like, okay, cool. And so I ended up going shopping with one of my good friends who was also pregnant. And we went shopping and got some last minute baby stuff. And I was having contractions like a couple times an hour. They weren't as regular until I got home, and then they were like every 20 minutes, and they were every 15 minutes, and they were every 10 minutes, and they had told me at the doctor's office, they're like, do not come in until they've been usually they say like every 5 minutes for 3 to 4 hours, but because I live farther away from my doctor, they told me that I should come in after 1 to 2 hours of them being every 5 minutes, if that makes sense. So I was laying in bed and I had to wait through contractions that were happening every 10 minutes until they were every 5 minutes. And then even after they were every 5 minutes, I had to wait 2 hours before going to bed. And I was definitely in labor. Like, it was painful and contractions constantly. And this is the other thing, no position would help them. That was the worst part about contractions. I will tell that to everybody. Like, in my experience, the worst thing was that, like, I feel like any pain, like period cramps, backache, all that kind of pain that you have, you can usually find a position that relieves the pain, the tension, and gets you comfortable, usually. Contractions, you can't at all. And it gets to the point where you're sitting there like, okay, one just happened. I have 5 minutes to breathe. Oh my goodness, I have to pee. Let me hurry up and go to the bathroom and try and come back so I can be like with Jared when I have a contraction, because he was so supportive, holding my hand, letting me squeeze his hand, like everything. I finally go to the doctor. This is at 3 a.m., technically on the 8th. So I'm at the doctor. They're like, yeah, like, you're in labor, you're having contractions. But I wasn't dilating fast enough, and nothing was happening. And they were watching the baby's heart, our baby's heart rate, and they wanted to go like this, and hers was going like this. Like, it was really low. And mind you, the morning before, we had just seen our doctor, and she's like, heart rate's fine, fluid's fine, growing is fine. everything was so fine for her the morning before. Okay, so they're watching her heart rate. They're worried about it. They were like, yeah, I don't see, they didn't see a lot of amniotic fluid around her. Like, her fluid was like, there was none. And I was like, wow, where did it go? Because it was there this morning, or like, it felt like nighttime, but I was like, it was there this morning. Yesterday, the day before's morning, but, yeah. So they were like, you know, we think she's really stressed right now. You definitely have to deliver her. We can't send you home like this. Like, it's unlikely you'll go home today because of this. They were saying that they just didn't think that she was in the right state to be delivered naturally, like my plan. My plan was vaginally and without medication. Obviously, I was not tied to my birth plan. I was not one of those people. I'm not one of those people who is like, I need it to be natural and no drugs, no what. I was like, you know what? If I'm sitting there and I'm in pain and I'm nowhere near to the finish line, give me an epidural. Okay. Like, if they ask me, do you want an epidural? And I can still have it? Sure. You know, like, I was kind of just going to play it by ear. And I was also, you know, if baby needs to come out a different way, then baby's going to come out a different way. We're going to do whatever we need to keep her healthy and, like, safe. And so they told me, you're going to need to have a C-section. And I was like, cool. Like, okay. Like, I was like, okay, then let's do it. Like, what are we waiting on? I'm not this indecisive person. Like, I trusted my doctors. I go in for my C-section, and if you've ever had a C-section, or if you've never had a C-section, my experience was a piece of cake. I was numbed from the ribs down. The numbing shot before they gave me the spinal anesthesia was like a basting. It was even less. It wasn't that bad. The hardest part was because I was still having contractions this whole time. It was really hard to stay still, and they needed me to stay as still as possible. As far as I knew, once she'd be out, that'd be the end of the problems. It wasn't. So yeah, they start numbing me, and they start like pinching my legs to see if I could feel anything. I couldn't feel anything at all, but I was fully awake. And I start to hear one of the doctors say, oh, I'm beginning the incision. And they still hadn't brought Jared in. Jared was still in the other room waiting. He was all dressed and everything, ready to come in, but he was still out there. And I was like, excuse me, aren't you going to bring Jared in? Is somebody going to get Jared? And they're like, oh yeah, we're going to do that right now. I was like, if I hadn't said anything, y'all would have forgotten. And I would have been pissed. So I'm glad I said something. And he came in, and he even walked, when he walked in, like after talking about it later, I was like, was I already cut open? And they're like, he was like, oh yeah, you were. I was like, sorry. He kind of didn't like that kind of stuff. So yeah, he's sitting next to me, hold my hand. It takes about 6 minutes for them to get the baby out. That's what they told me, and it was literally, she was out like that. And then it takes about 25 to 35 minutes, I think, ish, under 40 minutes of them stitching you back up. But at that point, like, it goes by really fast because you're just sitting there looking at your baby's over there. Like, you're just distracted by baby. You're not laying there waiting for them to finish. Unfortunately, my C-section was not like most C-sections in that way, because, you know, a lot of times if you have a C-section, they pull your baby out and you're able to see her, and they bring him to your face, and your husband holds baby, and, you know, you guys get that moment. And we did not. She had, like I said, a lot of problems. Within minutes of her being out, literally, they hadn't stitched me up yet, one of the nurses was like, you know, we're going to send some tests, but in her face visually, she looks like she has Down syndrome. And that was a shock to me, obviously, because I had done the testing and it came back negative. Not only that, but they were saying that she, because of the stress of labor, she had Meconium Aspiration. So basically that's just when the baby accidentally swallows some fecal matter and it gets into their lungs, and it's just not good for them. Obviously it causes infection, and it's just bad. It's during the stress of labor. Or it can be. It's pretty common. I looked it up. It was like 15% of pregnancies had it or something. And usually it just makes them sick, and then they can get better and they can be on antibiotics and they'll be fine. However, Carlyle was already very sick. So not only did she have Down syndrome, but she also had the Meconium Aspiration. And then later on, we found out that she had persistent pulmonary hypertension in newborn, so PPHN. And there was one other thing, IUGR, intrauterine growth restriction. So she came out and she was the size of a premature baby, but she was full term. I was a week to my due date, and so she was full term, but her nails, when we were in, because she immediately went to NICU, obviously, her nails had like this white stuff on them. And I asked, I was like, hey, what's that stuff on her nails? And they're like, oh, and then they explained to me she was the size of a preemie, she was full term, but her skin and nails reacted to the amniotic fluid as if she was in there for 41 plus weeks. Like, it looked like she was, or like her skin and stuff was as if she'd been there longer, which I don't know why that was. But she was diagnosed with IUGR, intrauterine growth restriction. So at some point, either she was just growing super slowly in my belly, or at some point she stopped growing. They said she looked to be the size of like a 34-week baby, and she wasn't. She was 38, or no, she was 39 weeks. And so, yeah, that worried them and stuff. And so all of that stuff combined, and then with the meconium aspiration, she wasn't healthy. She was very, very, very sick, like from the get-go. Jared went and got breakfast at one point, and he was able to go and check on Carlyle in the NICU, but I wasn't. And he was, he was nice. He kept telling me, like, she's okay, like, she's very sick, but every time I asked, like, oh, how is she? Like, he would kind of downplay it a little bit, I guess, to keep me from worrying, because I was still, like, I was helpless. I was literally still numb from the waist down. Like, I couldn't move at all. I couldn't see her. Keep in mind, it had been about 4 hours since she'd come out, and I still had yet to see her or hold her or anything. And that's freaking hard when you've been pregnant with a baby for 9 months and you felt them everything, and now they're out of you and having problems and you don't know why. So I finally got to a postpartum room, and I immediately asked, like, when can I see her? And so I still had to wait more. I had to wait, I think it was like 12 hours. I didn't get to see her until like Saturday night, and she was born at 6:56 Saturday morning. And they finally were able to take me in a wheelchair to go see her, and I have pictures from that moment. Obviously I looked like a wreck because I had been through labor and contractions, and I literally hadn't brushed my hair since I got to the hospital at 3 a.m. And those are like the only pictures I have with her before she was passed. I have a couple others, but she was just surrounded, later on, she was just surrounded by so many tubes and medications that, we couldn't like touch her much or anything. But I got to see her and stuff when she was in the NICU at Kaiser, and they were telling me that they were going to try and transfer her because she needed more help than they had. So they were in contact with like 2 different hospitals, and the Children's Hospital of LA was able to take her. And so by 3 p.m. on Sunday, so the next day, she was transferred to CHLA in a helicopter. And they were really worried about that because they didn't know if she'd make the helicopter. And she did. And then Jared and I got discharged Sunday night, which it was really early for a C-section. Like I said, I had a C-section Saturday morning, and Sunday night I was leaving because my baby wasn't there. Like, there was no reason for me to stay there, and I was recovering really nicely. And so they're like, yep, we don't need to keep you, you can go home. And because Jared and I hadn't been home or really slept well since Thursday night. We were up early Friday morning for my appointment. Friday night, I was having contractions all night, so we didn't sleep very well. And then Saturday early morning, we were at the hospital. Like, we didn't sleep at all between Friday and Saturday. And then Saturday night, we were sleeping at the hospital. So I got a decent amount of sleep, but Jared was on that little uncomfortable couch thing. And on top of that, every 4 hours, they come down to check on us, or to check on me and check my vitals and all that stuff. So we didn't sleep very well. So we're like, you know what, let's let them settle her down there and just have her let her have their undivided attention. it was already like 6 or 7 o'clock, so we're like, let's just go home. And so we went home, got a good night's sleep, and went the next morning to CHLA. She had a room that she was sharing with another baby, and it was a big room, and it was like machines everywhere. She was on like between 10 and 12 medications at this point. It was insane. It's really hard to sit in a room and stare at machines that are connected to your baby who's 2 days old and you don't know what they're doing. So we were trying to stay distracted. She wasn't oxygenating her blood properly. She had finally like gotten over the infection from Meconium Aspiration, they think, but she was still just very, very sick. And pale, and she was retaining so much fluid. She came out at 5 pounds 8 ounces, and when she passed away she was almost 10 pounds of just water weight and fluid. It's not how I wanted to go. They were putting her on new medications all the time, and then they would take off medications all the time, and it was back and forth. Everybody says when you're in the NICU, like, take everything with a grain of salt, because things change like that. And I can be a witness to that, because so she was born on the 8th. All that week we were constantly going back and forth from home to LA for the hospital, and then eventually we got a house, or a room at the Ronald McDonald House, which was amazing. And we were there for a couple days. They would do brain scans to make sure she was getting oxygen to her brain, because that's the most important thing. And during the ultrasounds, they would see that she had 2 little spots of damage on her brain, and they didn't know how severe it was. Or really quickly, I'm editing right now, and for some reason my adapter to my camera isn't working, so I'm just on my phone right now just to add this in. But I just wanted to add, you know, we don't know how severe that brain damage was, and we don't know what her future would have looked like. And I have a lot of faith in God that he looked and saw her future, and maybe he spared her from a life that was just really hard, not only on her, but on us as well. With Down syndrome and potential brain damage, like, we just don't know what kind of life she could have had, and the quality of life that she could have had. And so as awful as this whole situation is, I am religious, and so I like to think of the purpose behind it all. And I find a lot of, honestly, kind of comfort in the fact that, you know, maybe God was protecting her from that kind of thing. So I just wanted to add that in here because I didn't say that at all throughout the video. So yeah, I just wanted to add that in really quickly. And they didn't know how severe it was or if it was healing itself, because by the time they told us that, it was like the day before, and they were planning on doing ultrasound the next day to see if it was improving at all for medication. And they just never had a chance to, and they weren't able. Eventually ideally they would have wanted to do an MRI, but they couldn't really do that because she wasn't stable enough to be rolled anywhere, and the MRI couldn't come to her. And they were doing x-rays of her lungs constantly, and you know, she was getting better. Like, there was less fogginess in her lungs. I didn't get to see the last x-ray, but Jared did, and he said it was pretty clear. And so she was just getting better. And so the 16th comes around, and that was her due date. And we're at the Ronald McDonald House because we had just woken up. We were, like I said, staying there, and Jared's family was planning on coming and visiting that day. And I was getting ready because I was like, oh, I'm going to meet some of his family for the first time, because some of them, like, they live farther away, and so we don't see them that often. And I was gonna see his family for the first time. Not only that, but it was also her due date, and so I was wearing my Mama Bear shirt, and I actually put on a little bit of makeup. I had like mascara, and like I did my eyebrows, and that's it. So we get to the hospital, and as soon as we get there, it's like something's wrong. And there were like 5 nurses all surrounding her, 5 nurses and doctors and specialists and stuff, all different. They were all just surrounding her when we got there, and within like an hour or two, there were 9 different nurses and specialists and everything just all around her, trying to figure out what was going on, because like even just a couple days earlier they had given her new medication for the PPHN, and she was reacting well to it. As far as we knew, her numbers were doing really well. The doctor came over and talked to us, and she said, you know, there's not really much else we can do. And at this point I was already crying because I was like, something's wrong. I just felt it, and it's so scary sitting in that room and seeing everybody work on your tiny little baby when she's just this little. Sorry, I already said, like, I'm not trying to sit in front of a camera and cry. That's not the purpose of this. It's not like my reasoning behind this. And so if it gets too much, then I'm not gonna sit in front of the camera and just cry, because I'm just gonna edit it out later anyways. So the doctor came over to us, and she was like, you know, there's not really much else we can do. She said that we needed to call our family right then and get them there, and that they were gonna get her ready for me to hold her for the first time. And they started to unhook her. They weren't able to unhook her from everything, but like they unhooked a lot of things. And then I got to sit and hold her. I held her for so long. It didn't, obviously, like, looking back, I'm like, I wish I would have held her longer, but like everything started to happen at like 11, and we were leaving the hospital at like 5 o'clock. That we were there for a long time, obviously. And I was holding her, and then Jared got a chance to after a while, and then we switched back to me holding her when they took out everything. They took off all of the tubes and all the medication and the ventilator and everything. And that was like at 2:30-ish, and then the doctor gave us a while, and then at 3 o'clock she said she had to come in and check for a heartbeat. And I just remember that entire time she was checking for a heartbeat, I had kept praying that some miracle would happen and that she had miraculously been able to breathe herself. And she didn't after everything, and I just got to hold her. And then they were like, they actually let me give her a bath too and change her diaper. And they did footprints and stuff. I have this whole box of her stuff. They did her footprints, and they gave us this little they gave us a little book and then this little like clay imprint thing. So there's her little book. It says Carlyle on it, and so there's her little feet. And they were so much bigger than when she'd come out, because she was so, like, she was holding water weight and swollen. She was so swollen. I'm not gonna read this. It's gonna make me cry. Those are her little hands. Again, like I said, very swollen. Just because of water weight and, like, retention and all of the medicines and stuff. And she also had IVs on still, and so it was really hard to get them good. I have her blankets. She had little blankets and stuff. And I had a little scrapbook that we had started for her at CHLA. And then this is the little clay imprint. They did it upside down, but that's okay. And then the pink is actually a lot, it looks more wide than the clay imprint actually is. I don't know if you can see that, but the paint kind of smeared out over here. But yeah, there's her little foot. That's when they let me give her a bath and change her diaper and swaddle her. And then honestly, at that point, she was so pale and cold, and Jared and I kind of just wanted to go home and see our dogs. It was a hard drive home. It was like the hardest. And we came home and saw Samson, and Even from the first day when we came home from Kaiser on that Sunday, he knew. I don't want to cry, I'm sorry. He knew that there was something wrong, that she wasn't here. He would smell our baby blankets, he would smell us, he would look at my belly and he knew. And then the point of this video is not to like sit and cry and or anything like that. It's just, you know, I want people to know that they're not alone. And, you know, it's freaking hard. And those feelings, it's not gonna go away. And, you know, like, oh my gosh, my appointment, my follow-up appointment after my, I had my staples removed from my C-section, and then I had my follow-up, last week. And the doctor said, "How old's your baby?" And she already knew and she corrected herself immediately, but it was still such a stinging reminder. I don't really know what else to say. That's my story. If anybody wants to talk about like their story, I am more than willing to talk about it. All evidence to the contrary, it helps to talk about it. I still feel like I'm missing so much in this video. Like, I feel like there's so much happened, and honestly most of it I don't even remember. Okay, so I figure right now is as good of a time as any, because I knew that going through this would remind me of more stuff that I could tell you guys about. But this is her bag. This is a little hairbrush I brushed her hair with. This was her little teddy bear. My mom actually gave her this at Christmas time, but to us. And I put it in my shirt so it would have my scent on it, and I left it. It was in her little area with her the whole time. So it's in most of her pictures that we have of her. Her loveys are in here somewhere. There. So this lovey was hers. Children's Hospital of LA does a lot of donation things, and these are made by and donated by people. And we had told our social worker, your social worker is the one who gets them for you, and we told our social worker about Samson and Delilah, and so she made sure to get one with puppies all over it. You want to smell it? Samson's right here. He's like so interested in what I'm doing. Her little blanket. They had her in this when we were holding her. I don't remember if I brought this to them or if they brought it. No, I don't think I brought this to them. I think that was from the hospital. And then her little beanies. This is the one she wore when she first came out. It's her little blood pressure cuff. This was hanging on her her bed. And then I read her this book the night before she passed. And just more books and stuff that I had brought over, planning on reading them to her, and then we just didn't have a chance to. You know how they put a thing on your finger to watch your heart rate? That's what this was. It went on her finger. And it connected into the machine like that. Yeah. I don't really know how to end this video. Just know that if you go through this kind of thing, like, it sucks to say, but it happens way more than people want to talk about. It happens a lot, and it happens so unexpectedly. Like I said, our pregnancy was so normal and so fine and healthy, and she was always moving great and being healthy, and heart rate was always strong, fluids were always good, everything was always good. And I always say everything was always good until it wasn't, and then everything just went downhill so incredibly fast. It was insane. But yeah, I don't really know how to end this video. I hope that hearing my story was able to help anybody in any way, or I don't really know what I posted on Instagram that I wanted to tell my story of what happened, and I got an overwhelming amount of positive responses, people saying yes to do it, and so here it is, and I hope you guys enjoy, and please stay tuned to more, what's the word, lighthearted, uplifting content that hopefully is better than this, but I just felt like this had to be said because, you know, it's been a while since I've posted anything, and I wanted to address it before just moving on. Like she deserves to be addressed. She deserves to be talked about. She deserves to be honored and celebrated. Okay. Thank you guys so much.